We're going to continue and look again at Galatians chapter 5, verse 10, focusing on the last part of the verse. The verse reads in its total, I have confidence in the Lord that you will take no other view, and that the one who is troubling you will bear the penalty, whoever he is. My first assignment in the United States Army was as a tank platoon leader. I took over the platoon and discovered that we were only at 50% strength, and in time, new recruits came in. These new recruits were part of the all-volunteer Army. Most were pretty dedicated and manageable soldiers. However, some came into the Army because a judge or someone else gave them an alternative to have some form of penalty or join the Army. Now, we had one of these new recruits that was very difficult to handle. He was a troublemaker extraordinaire. This young man would continually do things to stir up the pot. He did not just try to stir up the non-commissioned and commissioned officers. He agitated everyone in the unit. Of course, the soldiers in the barracks would retaliate, and things just escalated. And one day, things came to a head while the platoon was in the motor pool doing maintenance. It was the last straw. He had to be removed for the sake of the mission. So I sent him to the company headquarters for a reassignment prior to having him discharged from the Army. Now, it is unfortunate that in life, there are many people who seem to have a goal of agitating others. They just seem to love stirring up the pot. Now, here Paul tells the Galatians that the one who is troubling you will bear the penalty. The phrase, one who is troubling, is a translation of the participle, which refers to a troubler or an agitator. In this, it referred to the false teacher who brought a teaching to them, which was causing great agitation in the congregation. Now, as we have been discussing, the false teaching was that legalistic obedience to the law was necessary to gain God's approval, that is, justification. And anytime false teaching is introduced to a congregation, the result will be a disruption and agitation in the fellowship. Paul lets the Galatians understand that the false teacher will bear the penalty for agitating the congregation with his errant doctrine. But as mentioned in previous posts, the church has a responsibility of maintaining purity of doctrine in the assembly. Thus, they would need to judge and correct the errant teaching, which would lead to excommunication of the false teacher. However, this is not that to which Paul refers here. Paul's referring to a future divine judgment on the false teachers. Luke recorded Jesus' words on this, and here are his words. It would be better for him if a millstone were hung around his neck and he were cast into the sea than that he should cause one of these little ones to sin. To cause someone to follow a false teaching is to cause them to sin. Peter further echoed this truth when we read in 2 Peter, and many will follow their sensuality, and because of them the way of truth will be blasphemed. And in their greed they will exploit you with false words. Their condemnation from long ago is not idle, and their destruction is not asleep. There is a judgment to come on those who preach and teach that which is against and wars against God's truth. Beware of such false teachers who sneak into the fellowship. Remove their threat. Remember that God knows all and has a judgment in store for these who would lead people astray.